up, my beautiful glamazons? Welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are excited for today's video. I have something special planned for you. This video will be in part of my series, Pretty Faces, Cold Cases. So many of you guys love this series, but today's case is going to be a little bit different. You guys know that I usually do get ready with me's during these types of videos, but because this case is different, this is actually not technically a cold case. It's a missing persons case that is going on right now and that happened really recently, and I wanted to talk to you guys about it, and I just want you guys to focus on the details. So today I won't be getting ready with you guys, but in honor of today's sponsor, Teamy Blends, I wanted to show you guys how I woke up this morning. Yes, I woke up like this. Your girl just plopped off their amazing green tea detox mask, especially that little blemish that decided to say hi on my forehead, and it really made such a huge difference in my skin. It's sponsors like Teamy that make these types of videos possible because, as you know, anything in regards to missing persons cases or cold cases or anything like that, especially if it has to do with sexual harassment or any sort of violence, a lot of times YouTube will demonetize those videos, and not only that, they will suppress them and not recommend them to you. So I'm going to be doing my best to market the hell out of this video so that we can all get all of the information that we can on this case. But thank you so much to my homies over at Teamy Blend for sponsoring this video and sponsoring this type of content and allowing me to speak freely about these cases. I really appreciate you. I love all of their products, you guys, like from skincare to their teas. Today I'm going to be drinking their green superfood blend. Have a restore powder that can help you relax and unwind after a long day. They have really good protein powder that's all natural, that is all plant-based, and has 16 grams of protein in it. You guys, I'm telling you, they are amazing. So if you guys would like to check out their products and see if any of them would work for you, whether it's skincare or any of their powders or their green superfood blend, definitely check out my description box below. You can click on the link there to check out what they have. And if you would like to save some coin, definitely use my code GLAMFAM25 for 25% off of anything on their website. Also, another great perk about shopping through Teamy is that a portion of their profits is being donated to the NAACP because they are trying to be a part of change. So thank you so much to Teamy Blends for sponsoring this video. Now let's get into this case. So in the last week, I have done quite a bit of research on this case, and honestly, this young lady has been on my heart and in my mind every day ever since. Something's not right, something's not hitting my spirit right, and I just want to go over the details that we have. Everything that we're going to be talking about today has been already released to the public, so it will not be a hindrance to the case in any way because everybody already knows about it. We're just going to go over timelines, we're going to go over maps, and we're just going to go over theories, and I really want your thoughts, so definitely make them known down in the comment section below. I really think that together we can definitely figure this out, so let's get into it. If I keep looking down, my notes are right here. I do have quite a bit of notes. Like I said, I did a lot of research. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about a young woman by the name of Vanessa Guillen. Her professional title, however, is Private First Class Vanessa Guillen. She is a U.S. Army soldier. She was born on September 30th, 1999. She's 20 years old and she has been missing since April 22nd of 2020. Vanessa's physical attributes include dark brown hair, light brown eyes. She stands at about 5'2". She's about 126 pounds. She has a mole on the left side of her chin, and she also has 3 tattoos, all of which are located on her left arm. One tattoo is a large tattoo that goes around her arm of mountains, and then she has one tattoo near the shoulder that's of a flower with a cross, and then she also has another flower on her left arm as well. Vanessa mysteriously went missing on the afternoon of April 22nd, 2020 in the parking lot of the Arms Room that's located on Hells on Wheels Avenue in the Fort Hood Army Base. She was last seen wearing a black t-shirt, light purple leggings, and black Nike shoes. We're going to be talking about a few different people, so I wanted to go down the list of people so that you guys don't get confused. The first person that I want to tell you guys about is Gloria. Gloria is Vanessa's mother. The next person that you're going to be hearing about is Myra. Myra is Vanessa's older sister. And thirdly, Vanessa had a boyfriend and his name was Juan Cruz. So Vanessa was described to be a very sweet and intelligent and very active young woman. Very smart. She did really well in school. She received many accolades and awards. She was academically inclined, so much so she graduated in the top 15% of her class in high school. She also graduated as a varsity soccer player, so she was extremely active, and our girl was just all around a beast. Okay, so her plan was to serve in the military, and then afterwards she wanted to go to school to study kinesiology, which I didn't even know what that was, but apparently it's the study of like the mechanics of the body. So our girl had a plan. Everything that she did with a plan and a purpose to get to a main goal. So that was her main goal. She wanted to serve in the military and then go on with school. So Vanessa went ahead with her plan and she enlisted in the Army right out of high school. So she was actually stationed in a few different bases before arriving at Fort Hood, one of which was in North Carolina and the other was in Virginia. But finally, she got transferred over to the Fort Hood Army base in Texas. And this seemed perfect because Vanessa is actually from Houston, and Houston is a 3-hour drive from Fort Hood. So this seemed perfect, and she definitely took advantage of this when she got transferred over to this new base. She took every single weekend to drive and see her family and see her boyfriend, and she was very, very much involved, and she just loved being around her family. She talked to them every single day. Her mother, her sisters, her boyfriend, they all heard from her every single day. She just was not the type to disappear. The morning of April 22nd came around and it was like any other day. She woke up and Juan Cruz, her boyfriend, stated that he received a text from her in the morning as usual, and she was letting him know that she was about to head off to work in the armory room. She was last seen in the parking lot outside of the Regimental Engineer Squadron headquarters, which is where she worked within the armory room. On this day, on the 22nd, her older sister Myra had not heard from her as frequently as she usually does, and there was a break in communication and she got worried. By about 8 p.m. that evening, Myra had not heard from her sister Vanessa, and she was not about to wait. And she ended up calling the staff sergeant who is in charge of taking attendance and keeping track of the soldiers there on base on the evening of the 22nd. And during her call with him, he informed her that the last time that anybody had seen Vanessa was around lunchtime. Keep in mind, this is around 8 p.m. So he told her, in light of the coronavirus, that they had actually implemented a curfew for all of the soldiers that ended at 10 p.m. So he told her, we're expecting her to check in about 2 hours. 10 p.m. is the cutoff. I'm sure everything's fine. We're just going to wait it out. She'll be here by 10. That never happened. Vanessa never showed up to check in time. The very next day, her family jumped into action again, and they reported her as missing immediately. The minute Vanessa was reported as missing, her belongings were found within the armory room that she worked in the Regimental Engineer Squadron headquarters building that she was last seen outside of. Inside of that room, the following items were found: her keys to her car, her entrance card to get into the building, and her debit card. Now, one major thing that was missing that has yet to be found is her cell phone. However, in an interview that I saw of Myra, Vanessa's older sister, and this was just a few days ago, she did say that they looked up the last time that the cell phone pinged, and it did ping within the Fort Hood base. There are some conflicting reports that maybe there was a ping about 20-25 minutes outside of town, but I heard from an interview directly from Vanessa's older sister that the ping actually came from inside Fort Hood base. Now let's go on to talk about the allegations that are involved in this case. During the interviews of the family of Vanessa, Vanessa's mother Gloria came forward stating that she had had a conversation with her daughter about 3 weeks before her disappearance. And this conversation was via FaceTime, and her daughter was still on base during this conversation, and her family had noticed that ever since her transferal to the Fort Hood base, that her demeanor and her personality and everything had changed. Now, Vanessa was normally known to be a very sweet, very loving, smiling all the time, very supportive, just really happy person. But her mom and her sister noticed something different about her. The minute that she moved over to this new base, everything changed, and she just seemed very down and depressed, and like something was really bothering her. So during this conversation, her mother took this opportunity to kind of question her about it and be like, Mija, what's going on? Why are you acting this way? And during that conversation, Vanessa finally broke down, and her mother said that she began to cry and told her mom that she was getting sexually harassed by a superior sergeant of hers. Of course, upon hearing this, her mother became livid. She was trying to pry and get more information out of Vanessa, and she asked her over and over, who is it? Give me his name. She was upset because Vanessa did not want to report it, not because she didn't feel like it was important, but she told her mom, this has happened to other female soldiers, Mom, and they have reported it and nothing has happened. And I don't want you to get involved because I'm afraid for your safety. Please, please, please just let me handle this. So she's begging with her mom. Her mom is pleading with her to give her the name, to do something. You can't just sit there in silence. What is going on? You have to say something. If you don't say something, I'm going to say something. So Vanessa decided that she was just going to try to calm the whole situation down. And she told her mom, okay, I will handle it. Please don't get involved. Please just trust me. I will handle it. But she did tell her mom that she planned on handling it on her own. It was kind of going back and forth, I think, with the thought of how many other female soldiers she had heard from, how many of them never got justice, and nobody believed them. So she felt as though, is it really worth it to go forward? But she knew that if she didn't, that her mother was going to keep asking her about it and probably try to deal with it herself. Now, here we are. We have absolutely no answers to where Vanessa Guillen is. After Vanessa went missing, Gloria came forward again and she said that she received an anonymous phone call from a sergeant that refused to tell his name out of fear that they would kill him. During this conversation, this anonymous sergeant told Mrs. Guillen that Vanessa had been kidnapped and was being kept on base, and that she was traveling through underground tunnels underneath the base, and that it wasn't just her that was being held down there, that there were other people as well. That was all of the information that she got out of this man. She did not get his name. He wasn't willing to give any other information, but he specifically said, your daughter has been kidnapped. She's here on base and she's traveling through these underground tunnels. Could you imagine being told that? And this person doesn't want to step forward. This person doesn't want to give their name because they're afraid. So now she's hearing about this theory that there's tunnels beneath the base that her daughter could potentially be kidnapped and be forced to stay in with other people that are probably missing. The weird thing about this is that when Vanessa Guillen first went missing, the army did not allow her family to step foot on the base to search for her themselves. And they claimed that this was because of COVID-19 and the risks along with that. But the family just felt like it was really weird that they didn't even want to consider maybe even doing like a guided search with them. Maybe they could wear some gloves and masks. Like, why are you completely denying this family to just look around? Like, what's the big deal? That in a nutshell is all that we have on Vanessa Guillen, her disappearance, what she was wearing, what she looks like, the circumstances surrounding it, and the allegations connected, okay? Now let's talk about this place, Fort Hood. It is among one of the largest military bases in the entire world, not the nation, the world. This base is approximately 214 to 215,000 acres large. It is huge. Back in September of 1942, this base was opened specifically to test and train with World War II tank destroyers. Those huge tanks, and they needed all of this land in order to do that. So that was why this entire base was born back in September of 1942. That's the answer behind why it's so big. And it's actually funny because not too long after that, they weren't even really testing those huge tanks anymore. They moved on to other different artillery. The base has just been there ever since. Fort Hood has been known to be a very, very sketchy place. My mother actually has stayed in Fort Hood before. I have a cousin who was in the U.S. Army, and he was in the Army up until my mom was around 12 years old. And during this time, sometimes she would stay with him and his family and like all of my other cousins on the base, because they house Army families there. I talked to her about what it was like there on base and how big it was and just what it was like to be there in person. And she said that even back then that her cousin, the one that was actually a soldier, would always tell her, do not walk these streets alone. Do you understand? So when I was talking to my mom about this case, she remembered even her feeling like very on edge and very uneasy. And she was told to not trust anybody around her because weird things have always happened on that base. Fort Hood is no stranger to missing soldiers. Most recently, before Vanessa Guillen went missing, back in August of 2019, a 20-year-old soldier by the name of Gregory Morales went missing, and he was actually labeled AWOL a month before his scheduled exit from the Army. He has yet to be found. Nobody has answers. His family don't have any answers. It doesn't make any sense why he would go AWOL merely a month before his exit from the Army. You know what I mean? I want to talk about Fort Hood and their security measures that they have on base, because a lot of people's first question is, are there any security cameras? You would think that this is a military base. Of course there's going to be security cameras for their safety, for other people's safety, for everybody's safety. But according to the Army, they claim that there are no security cameras on base, and especially not outside of that building that Vanessa Guillen just so happened to be standing outside of. There are no answers there, but it's really weird because Fort Hood has been a place of many atrocities. I just want to go through history to show you guys, just to kind of share a little bit of information about the background of Fort Hood and why this doesn't make any sense. Back in 2007, it was reported that a soldier by the name of Lawrence George Sprader Jr., he was participating in an exercise that was supposed to teach about simple navigation and map reading. So all of these soldiers are out there, they're doing this exercise, they take off, and they're supposed to basically learn how to navigate through the wild on their own and read maps and things like that. Lawrence George Sprader Jr. never showed back up after his exercise. Nobody said anything. He was missing for days and nobody could find him. They said that they actually had 300 soldiers looking on foot throughout the entire base and nobody found him. Until a few days later, when they found his body in a quote-unquote bushy area of Fort Hood, and he had died of hypothermia and dehydration. Now let's fast forward 2 years later to 2009. A U.S. Army major and psychiatrist by the name of Nidal Malik Hassan, he went to the base and opened fire in the Soldier Readiness Center and killed 13 people while wounding 32 others. He ended up being shot, kept alive, and arrested and taken to jail. In August of 2013, he was charged and found guilty of all counts and put to death. Fast forward another 2 years, 2011 comes around. There was a plot attack there on the base. Private First Class Nader Jason Abdo, at this time he was considered AWOL. He was found camping out near Fort Hood, near a restaurant where many soldiers frequented, and he was waiting there with the plan to kill a lot of soldiers within that restaurant. But before he was able to go forward with his plan, he was captured, arrested, and taken to jail. But the interesting thing about him is that on trial the very next year in August of 2012, he said, and I quote, "I will continue until the day the dead are called to account for their deeds." He was sentenced to life in prison. Let's fast forward again to 2014. 34-year-old Ivan Lopez, who was actually an Iraq veteran, went on a shooting spree at several different locations on base. He ended up killing 3 people and wounded 13 others. And after his spree was done, he shot himself, and there were no answers behind why he went on the shooting spree within this base. So during my research on Fort Hood and its really messy, bloody history, I also found something else that just made my stomach turn. This is so evident about how things have been working on this base and how much the Army protects their own. I'd like to talk to you about Sergeant First Class Gregory Mcqueen. He was placed as a battalion to fight against sexual harassment there at Fort Hood. That was his job. It turns out that Mr. Mcqueen was actually dishonorably discharged back in 2015 because he had been convicted of organizing a sex ring out of Fort Hood. Convicted. This is not an assumption. This is not an allegation. This man was convicted, and his job was to prevent sexual harassment there at Fort Hood. But little did everyone know that he was actually organizing a sex ring there. So you would think he's organizing a sex ring, he's gonna get life. because duh, that's what somebody like that deserves. But no. He did a mere 2 years in prison and got out. He lost his title, he lost his retirement, and that was about it. He got to return to his normal life. So much so that in 2017, Mr. Mcqueen and his wife were able to successfully file as foster parents and have foster children in their care. The fostering agency found out about his past, no thanks to the Army, and it turned out that the Army had not done their due diligence and did not report Mr. Mcqueen's conviction about the sex ring within Fort Hood to the Federal Bureau of Investigation so that they could add that to their database whenever doing background checks for foster children and foster parents who are applying to be foster parents. So he was able to get through the background check because the Army didn't snitch on him and tell the FBI, hey, he's a convicted felon and he was convicted of organizing a sex ring here on our base. So this man was able to do that, go to prison, come out, and have more children in his care. Great. He did eventually get caught. The children were taken from his custody and he no longer has the ability to be a foster parent. How ridiculous is that? The very person that was hired to stop and prevent sexual harassment there on the very same base that Vanessa Guillen disappeared from. This person was organizing a sex ring there. This is the type of base that this is. Fort Hood houses about 40,000 soldiers, and I've heard that number quite a few times, but what you have to understand about Fort Hood as a whole is that it's not just a base. They actually make it very civilian-like. They have restaurants, different stores to go shopping in so that you can kind of live your life normally for any of the families that are staying there and some of the soldiers, and they make it a whole community, right? 40,000 soldiers live there. That's not including soldiers' families that are living there, as well as any civilian employee that lives on base as well. In total, this place can house up to 53,000 people. Okay, so let's talk about security of Fort Hood. I wanted to bring up some maps. During my research of Fort Hood, I brought up some maps and layout of Fort Hood to kind of get a better idea of where Vanessa was taken from, about where, everything was located, just so that I could get, a bird's eye view of what happened. Here's the map that I pulled up, and I wanted you guys to see this because it shows everything from the different restaurants to different stores, but most importantly, the gates. Now, during my investigation, I was hearing conflicting reports about how the Army was handling the COVID-19 spread and how that affected their gates. They have multiple different gates to get into the base, and they released a statement saying that they were going to be changing the hours of operation of those gates, limiting how often people can get in and out of base. From some people, I've heard that there are 4 gates on base and that 3 of them were closed and only 1 of them was operating. However, on the Fort Hood Army website, I found the following statement from them that was released on April 2nd of 2020, which was before Vanessa Guillen went missing on the 22nd. And they said 4 Fort Hood gates will operate for limited hours from 5 a.m. to 6 p.m. The gates affected are State Highway 195 gate adjacent to Frank Mayborn gate, Warrior Way gate, Old Caparas Cove gate, and 79th Street gate. So here is the map that I downloaded of Fort Hood as a whole, and it also shows the different gates that Fort Hood has. Maybe these are just the main gates, but there are definitely more than 4 gates that I'm seeing on this map. Now, if you look at this map here, the areas that have the yellow dots near them are the gates that were referred to in the previous statement that I just read to you. So I wanted you guys to kind of get an idea of the gates that were affected with the new limited hours put in place in response to COVID-19 back on April 2nd. And these gates only operated from 5 a.m. to 6 p.m. But all of the other gates remained open and operated on normal hours. From what I could see, there are 2 or 3 other gates besides the ones mentioned. Some people had the argument, there was only 1 gate operating, all of the others were closed down. I'm not too sure about that. From what I'm reading, there were 4 gates that had limited hours. There are not only 4 gates that lead into Fort Hood. Not all of them operated with these limited hours. So now I went to a different website called the FortHoodPressCenter.com. They also released a statement on April 2nd, 2020 at 2:37 p.m. and it says, Fort Hood to adjust select gates access due to COVID-19 response effort. Fort Hood, Texas, Fort Hood officials announced that the Directorate of Emergency Services will close or alter operating hours at select access control points due to COVID-19 response effort effective at 5 a.m. April 3rd of 2020. Access control points are State Highway 195, Old Caparis Cove Road, and 79th Street will close until further notice. The DES will open 79th Street for outbound traffic only from 3 to 6 p.m. weekdays. East Range Road will change operating hours to 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. until further notice. There are conflicting reports here, but at the end of the day, because of COVID-19, they did limit the hours of some of the gates on base, but how many gates exactly, I don't know. Fort Hood does not have good security at all, which is surprising considering all of the other atrocities that I mentioned earlier in this video. You would think that with as many shootings, plot attacks, and your own soldiers going missing during an exercise for navigation skills, you would think that you would possibly have some sort of security cameras installed, if not for other people's safety, at least for your own soldier safety. I guess there's a reason for them not having the cameras there. They don't want any footage of like what their drills and what they're working on. But my question is this: if they didn't have any cameras and no security at all whatsoever, how did they know about the plot attack that Mr. Nazar Jason Abdo had back in 2011 when they found him camping out in the parking lot of a restaurant where soldiers frequented? How did they know he was there? I thought they didn't have security cameras. What, somebody just saw him? Really? None of this is adding up. None of it is making sense. There are soldiers going missing, Vanessa Guillen being the most recent. At this time, the Army Criminal Investigation Department, otherwise known as CID, they're currently in charge of overlooking the investigation into Vanessa Guillen's disappearance. When they were asked about the allegations of sexual harassment and whether or not that would play a part in her disappearance, they released the following statement: "We are not aware of any reported sexual assault, but are investigating all possibilities and have not ruled anything in or out." They say that they've conducted dozens of interviews and that they assisted with extensive searches for Vanessa Guillen, both on the ground and in the air. I just don't believe that things are operating there as we might think that they are. I think that something shady is going on. I think that there have been so many people who have come forward. Throughout my research, I wanted to kind of hear the thoughts of other people who have either lived in Fort Hood or have family that live there that have more of an in-person insight as to what goes on there and how things work. So one thing that I found that was really interesting was the chain of command and how that works. So the first person in the chain of command is the squad leader, then the section sergeant, platoon sergeant, 1 SG, company commander, and finally 6. Let's not forget about the key control. Contrary to what many people think, the armor does not have the keys to the arms room. She would have had to coordinate with the key control officer, and he or she would have had to given her the keys. Those are just people of interest, not saying they did it. I read this, a community thread where people were giving their own 2 cents about what they know and the inner workings of the Army, and this person was saying, hey, Vanessa Guillen may have worked in the armory room there at the Regimental Engineering Squadron headquarters. However, in order for her to get into the room that she works in, she had to get the key in order to go to work from the key control officer, and they have to check that key in or out. Like, they can't just keep it on their person. So there would have been no way for Vanessa to either get in there or leave without the key control officer knowing, you know? And then I saw another person post, I heard that they last tracked her phone at Belton Lake 2 days after she went missing, which you can get to on post. I don't know if this is true. I saw it online. I'm stationed here on Fort Hood right now. Then another person commented, I personally know people who are stationed in Fort Hood who had to go look for her after she went missing. They did not look off base for her until about a week later, from my understanding. I grew up in a military town, and you assure everyone that No military personnel would leave the base without their ID. The military will protect their reputation at all costs. So now let's talk about theories, possible theories of where Vanessa Guillen could be. There are two major theories that I've heard of at this point, one of which we already kind of know about, which is in response to sexual allegations. Some people think that Vanessa Guillen was in fact kidnapped, but is being kept there on base and being transferred from place to place via the underground tunnels there, and she's being kept for one reason or another. Theory number two, however, is actually another big theory that a lot of people think could actually be true, and that's involving a really weird church. They go by the name Assembly of Prayer Church in Killeen, Texas. They're about 15 minutes away from the base. A lot of people on base, both civilians and soldiers, have reported seeing these people from this church driving around the Fort Hood base in a gray van trying to recruit people, but mostly young women, to join their church. Apparently, they're really direct and they're actually kind of rude and very pushy about it, where they're like demanding you to come join them for a service in their church, like at that moment. There have been reports that they would even like wait at your house, follow you, and keep trying to invite you and not really get the hint. If you say no, they'll keep coming around. Some people believe that Vanessa Guillen may have been kidnapped by one or more of the members of that church and is being forced to be a part of a cult that this church is associated with. And so many individuals have come forward, even before Vanessa's disappearance, talking about the weird behavior of these people from Assembly of Prayer Church. These are all allegations. Nothing has been confirmed, but because of how weird they go about trying to recruit followers for their church, it seems like a likelihood to a lot of people that Vanessa Guillen could have been a victim, somebody from that church having kidnapped her in order to force her to be a part of a cult. Those are the two major theories, and we don't have any other information besides what I gave you guys today. I just want you to imagine that this is your sister, that this is your daughter, that this is your best friend, and she just is trying to follow her dream and serve her country. If you know anything about where she could be or who could have last seen her, please come forward. Her family misses her. So many people are looking for her. Her life matters. Gregory Morales matters. Where are these soldiers? Where are they going? They're not just disappearing. They're somewhere. Somebody is taking them. We all know that 2020 is the year of change, and it's time to change this generational curse that has been over Fort Hood as a whole, where so many people die and get kidnapped and go missing on that land. Something has to give, something has to change so that people have the ability to serve their country in peace and be protected the way that they deserve to. They are putting their lives on the line to serve their country, and then they go missing. The Spanish news station Telemundo had a interview with Gloria, Vanessa's mother, and it turned out that a restaurant owner there in Fort Hood, he actually owns a taqueria, which is a Mexican restaurant. He reported that he actually has security footage of Vanessa coming in on April 15th. She came in on April 15th at around 2:30 in the afternoon, and there's footage of her coming out of her car from the parking lot, going inside and ordering her food. She then sits off to the side on a bench and she's really focused on her phone, but it doesn't seem like she's just looking through Instagram. It seems like she's really bothered by something. Owner of the store said that she was so into her phone and what was going on and so serious about it that when her food was actually ready to go, she didn't even realize it, that she seemed to be troubled by something. And in the video, you can definitely see that. Vanessa was known to be really happy and just smiling all the time, and that was not the case in this video. This was exactly a week before she went missing. On this exact day, on April 15th, Vanessa Guillen tweeted her last tweet, and it said, "This is some BS." Some people speculate, including her family, that day may have been the day that she attempted to speak to someone about reporting what she had been experiencing with sexual harassment from a superior, and that maybe it did not go the way that she planned, and maybe as a result she was very frustrated and she felt like this was some BS. Then later she goes to this taqueria to pick up food, and also the owner said that she picked up food for 2 people, that there were 2 plates, 2 different menu items there. So she was obviously picking up food for herself and somebody else. And I want to know who that somebody else was. Who was she having lunch with that day? Because she was obviously upset, and whatever she was upset about, when she went to go have lunch with whoever she was having lunch with, they had to have known, they had to have heard something about why she was so upset and what was going on. Like, who was she having lunch with that day? The owner of the taqueria came forward with his security footage and showed it to the mother of Vanessa Guillen. She broke down seeing that footage. That is the last known footage of Vanessa Guillen. Vanessa Guillen's mother ended up going to that taqueria in person just to talk to the manager and maybe get any other information from any other of the workers, and honestly just to stand in the very spot that her daughter was standing in. And it was the most heartbreaking thing to see. I want to do my part and get Vanessa Guillen's name out there. I'm gonna leave phone numbers and links and petitions and all of that down below in my description box for you guys to take a look at and take part in. Please, please get her name out there. Post about her every day until she's found. The likes of Selma Hayek are advocating for her. Baby Bash, you guys know Baby Bash? He's pledging $5,000 in addition to the $15,000 reward. So now it is up to $20,000 if you have any information that could lead to Vanessa Guillen's whereabouts. This case is so unbelievably infuriating. Her family wants her back and wants her alive, and she needs to come home. So if you could be of any help, please consider doing so. I'm going to leave everything that you need down below. There are even phone numbers that you can call to report anonymously. You will be completely safe. Please say something. They're missing their daughter. They're missing their sister. There's another mother out there that's missing her son, you guys. These soldiers cannot just continue to disappear from their base and nobody do anything about it. We have to do something. We have to stand together and help find them. So that's all I have for you guys today on this case. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys like videos like this and would like to see more from me, definitely hit that like button. I would really appreciate it. I love knowing what you guys like to see. If you're not a part of my glam fam, I would love to have you. Hit that subscribe button, notification bell, so you're never missing out on any new videos. I have so many great things coming for you guys. Follow me on my social medias. You can find them here, and share this story in any way that you can. I would very much appreciate it, and I know that Vanessa Guillen's family would as well. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to today's video. I love y'all so much, and I will see y'all very soon in my next video. Peace out, y'all. Be safe.